All right, so today I'm going to review a little bit about today's lesson. To do that, let me remind you, we go to our red folder, we select basic calculation, and we're going to pick the last choice, GeoGebra prime factorization combination tool. I click on it, I open it, continue. Here are my instructions, but in reality, what I want to do is just start the program. I'm going to start with a question that reads like this. So example number one is going to be x squared plus 2x minus 24 is equal to 0. Now, what I'm going to do is I'm going to start by putting a 1 here in the front, and I'm going to begin by setting it up like this with the times tables. So what I'm really basically saying to myself is I'm going to take 1 and negative 24, I'm going to multiply. So that sets me up. Two numbers have to multiply to equal negative 24, while at the same time, those same two numbers are going to add up to be equal to 2. So I'm going to start here on my program just to see what I can come up with. I'll start with 24. And I can see that it gives me my factors. So I'm going to start by trying out 2 times 2 and then 2 times 3. That uses up all the numbers. And that gives me the 10 that I want. Well, actually, that gives me 10, but I want 2. So what if I make the first one here negative? How does that change things? Let's see. So that turns into a negative 4, positive 6, and a 2. So then what that tells me is that if I have negative 4 and 6, that gives me negative 24, but negative 4 plus 6 makes the positive 2 that I wanted. Once I have that, I go ahead and I create my X shape. And remember that on the top is always the first number, which is negative 24. On the bottom will be my second number, which is 2. My two answers of negative 4 and 6 will go here on the side. Now purposely rewrite these as having over 1. Mostly that idea comes from the fact that my first value here is a 1. So I'm using the exact same value there. That's going to be kind of a theme. All right. So now, once I have it written that way, I'm going to go ahead and I'll rewrite it as a 1x and minus 4. Then here, I'll rewrite this again as a 1x and a positive 6. Because this is a big old X for times tables, I put a little dot here for multiply as well. And I'm going to say that this is now factor form. And that's what example number 1 would look like. So now I'm going to clear my space, set up my next question. And my next question is going to look like this. Sometimes I have a problem that looks this way. So let's see. 3x squared plus 21x plus 30 is equal to 0. Now, if I notice that the number in the front will easily divide each of the other numbers, I would rather do that step so I don't have to deal with such big numbers. So I'm going to divide everything by 3. We've done this technique in the past. And so the end result is that we now go ahead, and as soon as I do that, I can cross this out. And if you remember, I end up writing it like this. My first number here becomes x squared. 21 divided by 3 becomes 7x. And 30 divided by 3 becomes 10. I add the 1 in the front, and once again, I do the same step as before. Except that now, instead of multiplying 3 times 30 to end up with something like 90, all I got to do is multiply 1 times 10. So what do I want? I want two numbers that when I multiply, they give me 10, while at the same time, if I add them, they make 7. And so that's what I want. Okay. I'm going to type the 10 in here just to see what it gives me. Let me get rid of this. All right. I quickly noticed that it's just a 2 and 5, so those are my only choices. Because of that, I'm going to come over here and I'll say, let this be a 2, let this be a 5, let this be a 2, let this be a 5. I create my X value. On the top, I'm going to put 10. On the bottom, I'm going to put 7. And my two answers are 2 and 5. Now, given that I now have a 1 right here, then that means that I'm going to rewrite this as being over 1. And that way they match. So, once again, my new answer turns out to be 1x and a positive 2, parentheses. In here, 1x and a positive 5, parentheses, multiplication, multiplication. But because I had factored out originally a 3, I can now put that extra 3 in the front. And this is my second solution. This is now what I call factor form. Okay. Example number 3. Let me reset. For example number 3, there are times when I'm not able to factor out the number. I mean, that happens. So I'm thinking of an example that looks like this. 3x squared minus 5x minus 2 is equal to 0. In this case, if I try to go ahead and divide by 3, I quickly figure out that this part here just won't work. So I have to approach it in a different way. So I'll start here and I'll multiply again, just like normal. But this is now suggesting that I want two numbers that multiply to make negative 6, mostly because 3 times 2 is 6 and 3 times negative 2 is negative 6. While at the same time, I want these two numbers to add up to negative 5. Okay. So I notice that it's a negative 6 here. So look at what I'm going to try. I am going to go ahead. I'll try here and put a 6 just to see what it does for me. 2 and 3 are my only choices. But something that I notice is I could also use 1 and 6. It just doesn't give me that choice. So look at what I'm going to do. I'm going to put negative 6 and 1. And I'm going to test it out. So if I test it out, I'll say negative 6. And here I'll say 1. And I quickly notice that negative 6 and 1 makes negative 5, just like I want. So that means I'm in good condition. So negative 6 and 1. I continue with the x like I would normally. I end up putting the negative 6 on top, the negative 5 on bottom, and my two answers, negative 6 and 1 right here. Now here's the difference. Originally, every time I did this, I always looked at the number in the front, and I quickly noticed that this time my number is a 3. So that means I'm going to put this as a 3. Because just like I did with the example with 1, I want these pieces to match. Now what happens is that here I now have to divide if possible. And I learned that negative 6 divided by 3 is the same as negative 2 over 1. The 1 over 3, well, that gives me a decimal, so I can't really divide it. So I'm actually going to use this answer and this answer. So how am I going to use it? Okay, let's start with the negative 2 over 1. This means I'm going to have 1x minus 2, just like normal. But now the 3 down here means that I'm going to have 3x plus 1. And now I do my typical steps. And this is what I claim is factor form. And there you have it. These are the steps in order for me to complete it in factor form. These are the 3 possibilities. Okay, be reminded that the tool here on the side, its purpose is to go ahead and give you a chance to play with combinations of numbers. All right, hope this helps. Bye.